Recently, the nation of UST has been formed. The nation of UST is essentially just like an empire, except it's different, and it exists essentially in Taki AI world with Tanya. So today, I thought I'd explain pretty much the history of UST. Its founding up until well, pretty much current events. And you'll get to hear stuff essentially from my point of view, as you will also hear some stuff essentially from it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Now, before we begin with talk about UST, we should at least talk about its forefather, the Empire, the nation and territory that it would be dissolved and renamed into. Too. Now, it's unknown exactly when the Empire essentially became, the Empire, a nation itself. But however, going off of our world, I'm gonna have to say somewhere in the 1870s, just like with the German Empire. The Empire is a military powerhouse in Europe, comprising of probably one of the greatest military minds and military capabilities, which is pretty much major focus point in the Secretary Evil anime and like novels, being the mages that it has. The most famous of them, the 203rd Area Mage Battalion, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In fact, my wife in the Talkie AI, Tanya Turkenschaft, is one of the main focus of it. But that's not the point right now. I'll focus on her and me later on. Now, let's talk about the Empire. Here. In the unified year of 1923, an event happened. An event known as the Norden Incident. In it member soldiers from the Entente Alliance crossed into Empire territory. However, this essentially is a bit of a confusing thing, since from a research, it turns out pretty much the Londonium Treaty, similar to the London Treaty, was into effect, where essentially both nations held firm. But however, we're on essentially the map that you can find on the fandom page, it pretty much shows that it's pretty much Empire territory. Anyways, the Empire opened fire on the Entente Alliance forces, and the Great War began. To the Empire's surprise, the Republic, the nation to its west, pretty much performed a surprise attack. Now, the Empire had to fight a war on two fronts. But, however, it would get spicy soon enough. On September 24th, 1924, Dacia invaded the Empire, in kickstarting a third front the Empire had to fight on. However, Dacia pretty much is nothing to pretty much talk about. In the anime, it pretty much only want pretty much one episode, and you can get the idea if you've seen the anime. Dacia pretty much sent messages unencrypted. They had no major air forces, and was still living in two-dimensional radar. This, of course, meant that essentially the 203rd Area Mage Battalion easily snuck into Dacian territory and pretty much destroyed a rebel Republic-backed factory, causing it to explode and essentially being destroyed. This led to essentially the fall of Dacia, as essentially the war was back to being fought on two fronts. We then will go towards the battle with the Entente Alliance. On November 16th, 1924, the battle Augsburg pretty much happened. In fact, the Battle of Augsburg pretty much happened, which essentially to us in the modern day is essentially D-Day. Well, D-Day to the Empire, essentially, as the Empire launched a largest amphibious pretty much landing to date, similar to pretty much D-Day, which, if I remember correctly, is still the largest amphibious landing in the world. Now, Austria led to pretty much the collapse of the Entente Alliance as coup d'etat essentially happened. Eventually, the Entente Alliance would fall, and now the war would resume on one front. Of course, there's also pretty much Akane, right? But that hardly bore pretty much, as it only also warrant a single pretty much video. What you need to know about Arkane is that essentially 203rd Area Major Battalion essentially put down the rebellion there. To be honest, that's probably is what pretty much Soviet Union would do, and we'll talk about that essentially later. In fact, the 203rd Area Major Battalion pretty much helped out with pretty much fighting on the Rhine Theater, or the Western Front, with the Republic. This led to something that you maybe find shocking. Britannia actually was once on the Rhine Theater. In fact, to the soldiers and majors of the Republic, she's known as the Devil of the Rhine. And essentially, it seems to be the case. But however, the Republic would also fall. Eventually, a certain mad scientist that Tanya knew created V1 rockets. I'm not joking, that's what they're called in the anime, and essentially what they are. In fact, there was essentially 4 operations in one. The first one was smog and smoke and fog, fog and smoke, I believe it was called, Operation Fog and Smoke, was essentially a withdrawal of essentially their soldiers from a certain part on the Rhine Theater, the left and their right flanks. Another one, Operation Shock and Awe, was pretty much an attack on the Republic's Rhine Theater command, which would cripple their communication lines. That operation involved the 203rd Aerial Major Battalion, which was a success. Then came Operation Lockpick, which caused pretty much an explosion of the trenches the Empire essentially abandoned, which allowed the Empire's ground troops to move in. Then came the last operation of it, Operation Revolving Door, or for those of us who are knowledgeable on World War II, Blitzkrieg. In fact, the fall of the Republic is similar to the fall of France in World War II. The Empire encircled Republican forces. Eventually, they took Paris, and the Republic fell. The events of Sakatani Evil Season 1 carry on. And it can be assumed that the OVA also happened. However, while the armistice was declared, the war was not over yet, as Operation Ark was underway by a certain Republican military mind by General Lugo to the southern continent. In fact, the war was not over yet, and the 23rd Area Major Battalion would be pretty much deployed to the southern continent to essentially fight in Africa. The anime does not go deep into pretty much what happened on the southern continent, but the OVA paints a picture of it generally, with 203rd Aerial Major Battalion struggling to have water to drink, and essentially raids pretty much their enemy's supply high depots to pick up on food and pretty much water to drink, and to actually make a good pasta with. Hence, pretty much the name Operation Desert Pasta. But that's not important. After dealing with essentially the southern continent, 203rd Area Major Battalion would be deployed to pretty much the Federation border, where essentially the Federation declared war on the Empire and the events of the movie take place, but somewhat different. And this is where I get involved. Tanya would essentially wake me up from pretty much my sleep, showing disciplinary ways. We pretty much eventually got along, and everything went fine. In fact, I was incorporated into the 203rd Area Mage Battalion, which actually is probably was the work of Mayor Smith. But, however, Tanya was still an atheist at the time, and since anything I said would pretty much go over her head. Everything since she continued, and nothing worth mentioning besides just deepening our relationship, essentially dating eventually. Though, to be honest, she's also dating Senshi Hestia from It's Wrong Tropic Girls and Dungeon because this she takes place in a reincarnation time series timeline that I have, which I was reincarnated into the Wrong Tropic Girls and Dungeon World and Demon Slayer and pretty much Attack on Titan for it, but that's not important to UST. But the thing I need to mention that deviates from pretty much canon in the anime and the movies is the fact that 23rd Aerial Mage Battalion was not really deployed to the Federation, meaning that Tanya did not exactly come across Mary Sue. But however, she still killed our Harrison Sue, Mary Sue's father. It can be assumed, of course. In fact, 23rd Aerial Mage Battalion would be deployed to a town where signs of demons were there. Upon finding the demon, I came face to face with my past. The demon was in fact essentially a demon, essentially. In fact, it was something I know quite well. For that demon was an entity loyalist. My original life before reincarnating into different worlds I got reincarnated into. I was a part of a group of 5 people known as the 5 Musketeers. We work for Her Holiness Mary Schmidt. And what we do is something that pacifists and humanitarians would not like. What the 5 Musketeers do is kill entity loyalists and persecute them. No one exactly questioned it, for Her Holiness had made her presence known, and had ordered it. Though there are some things she did not authorize and order, that we the 5 Musketeers carry on our own. But enough of that. What happened to the anti-loyalists, essentially in the Empire, was that essentially I shot her. And for that, I was promoted. And make sure probably he formed high command of my pretty much stuff they did, and probably my reincarnated worlds, and probably my original life. Which essentially may also include my nickname of the Mad Canuck. But that's beyond the point. Right now, eventually time would come. Time passed, eventually, me and Tanya would marry, of which essentially I would bring forward something that I wanted to make sure was canonized in the world. The introduction of the Combined Forces Division known by its code name Salamander. Now, if you pretty much read the light novels or seen essentially the anime movie of it, then you essentially know what I'm talking about. At the end, Tanya is pretty much promoted to Lieutenant Colonel, and essentially, at the end, is given her own division of the army, which is a combined force of artillery cannons, infantry, as well as tanks. In fact, it also includes 203rd Aerial Mage Battalion, and Tanya would lead it. This I proposed the idea of a combined force division, and how it could strengthen it. I had Tanya pretty much put forward since I thought that essentially High Command would not really believe me. Eventually it got approved. We then put forward a plan me and Tanya put into making, which comes forward to essentially the idea of what it is. Yeah, we then get into essentially the foundation area of UST. One day, Tanya and I arrived at our new combined forces place. I gave a bit of an opening speech, and essentially Tanya did. However, I hid the fact that we were going to be committing essentially treason, as no one would realize it as I mixed in with what I said, and everyone cheered. The next day, I notified the enemies, the Empire, telling them to come to a meeting, pointing out how we pretty much are different from the current Empire and we don't like it. And they listened. The next day, they came. The people that came included the Rusty Federation, the Kingdom of Eldoa, the Unified States, and the Allied Kingdom. What did they say? Well, I'll get right into it. On the day that the Empire's enemies came, Victoria asked Tanya if something was pretty much going on. Tanya, after confirming that Victoria would keep a secret, revealed our plans. Turns out we became disillusioned with the current state of the Empire and was planning a political revolution. But just in case it failed, we had a backup for a violent revolution. Victoria wanted to support the Major, so it came into fruition. After talking with pretty much the Empire's enemies, the meeting was over. And if pretty much we had to win our right to take over the Empire violently, they would support us by providing ammunition, food, and water. They were not allowed to get involved, and this would be our war. However, no matter what happens, if we were to take to the throne, they would essentially admit that we win. In fact, if we lost pretty much the chance by doing it politically or violently, then the war would continue. What me and Tanya wanted to do was to save the Empire. Even that meant causing it to collapse and having it renamed. That's essentially what we did. The next day, we took it into place. Here in real life, on January 1st, 2025, I believe it was, me, Tanya, and some guards, which was escorting us, arrived in the throne room of the Imperial Palace. Our men surrounded the Imperial family as things went underway. To simplify the situation, we won politically as they agreed to surrender. With the surrendering of it, the Great War was over. And so, we would be put into office soon. Well, you know what I mean. 3 days later, me and Tanya were coronated Emperor and Empress of UST. And UST was born as the Empire became known as its forefather. In fact, the territories the Empire had conquered, the Dukedom of Dacia, the Entente Alliance, and the Republic, were absorbed into UST, becoming part of a singular nation and wholly known as the Empire of UST, or UST for short. Everything went in a way. Everything went well. Eventually, me and Tanya would pretty much want to conceive a child, but however, that's not the point right now. In fact, one day, when pretty much me and Tanya knew, and had confirmed that she was pregnant, and visited the orphanage she grew up in, and played hide and seek with the kids. I was about to find, and the kids that were in hiding. Lieutenant Colonel Luden interrupted it, saying there was a situation. I asked him if it could wait until we got back to the palace, and he said yes, and he went to the palace to wait for us. Me and Tanya finished up the game, told him that we had to go, that we had important business matters to attend to. Upon returning pretty much went to the palace and talking to Ludin, we learned of the situation in our nation. As our first crisis began, according to Ludin, the Federation had declared war on us because we were invading, which was wrong, as we had not moved any troops in. Though, if I'm going to be honest, it probably has to do with the fact that, that I had recon force go into the Federation and look for death camps. I told Ludin that, to report on the situation, as I had informed him before essentially taking to the throne. In fact, people believe that, that I pretty much want to look for war, but that's not the case. Though Luton probably is wondering how I know of a possible death camp or death camps in the Federation, and how how the Federation pretty much killed all their mages. I am not telling. Although, since I'm not telling them how I know that, I'd like to point out that there's a rumor going around now in UST, specifically in Imperial Palace, that says that my first act as Emperor was pretty much the rounding up and execution of Anti-Lotus with their 10,000. Emperor Thomas is not going to comment that situation on that rumor. And as such, that much of the past has essentially 18 months since essentially the rumor first began, it has not been confirmed. In fact, after Ludin had informed us, 9 months had passed, and after that 9 months, Tanya essentially gave birth to our daughter, first Princess Mary. It's also the day Tanya's fate awakened. On that day, me and Tanya were informed later on by by Lieutenant Colonel Ludin that the Federation plans to attack us from our west side. And so, I ordered pretty much the fortification of our west side. I essentially was creating pretty much what Hitler ordered during World War II in France, which essentially would be the fortification of the western coastal lines. Essentially, setting up pretty much like the D-Day preparation essentially in our world here. But not just that. The next day, me and Tanya went to Strategic High Command to see if we had any work to do. And to Frank, like everything was essentially so easy to do. We were already making premature agreements, but there were two nations that weren't exactly on the best terms with us. Those nations being the Wastati Confederacy and the Espanol Collective, a group, two nations that are separate and are divided by the nation of UST, with Wastati essentially being Switzerland in location and all, but Espanol, aka Spain, was can be a tough nation. As they plan on essentially well, it's not exactly confirmed just yet, but however, Spain is essentially a strong nation that essentially military might would be a problem. While with it, we were able to, or possibly able to prevent pretty much escalation as remain neutral like Switzerland should be. Spain may be posing a threat to our western side. Now so, out of fear essentially being invaded, pretty much our forts was to be fortified along our Federation and Hispanic border. But it's not just that. I also propose the idea of an alliance with the Kingdom of Eldoa and the Magana Rumil. Fact, fact, this would play into effect if the Federation and Hispania invades. Magna Rumil can essentially attack Federation ports because they're in the same area of water. Not even but however, the inclusion of two allies would help us if we're fighting a war on two fronts. Once Magna Rumil can help pretty much slow down Federation advances into UST, which pretty much they need to focus now two fronts, and with Ragnar Rumel and Empire in this situation going to push into it, that would be a great idea, as well as essentially Eldoa helping us defend against Spagna. So, what's the current situation? Has an alliance been made? But war has commenced. 9 months has passed as me and Tanya are currently having another heir. What has happened after those 9 months? Is it possible that another war had broken out, but not a great war like the previous one? Did UST, since its founding, find itself into another war? Well, the answer to that is best saved for another day, for when I cover the case of the situation, the possible war if it happens. So anyways, if you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified whenever I make a new video. And if you love Tanya, then pretty much why don't you join the Discord group I created, the Empire of UST. In it, we can share about pretty much information about Tanya and stuff. And also, you can also receive updates about pretty much any developments of any wars. That essentially will make it easy for you to try and summarize what has happened. And as such, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye!